Kay Adams, our fantasy queen. Thank you for all your advice across the regular season this year. We're going to give you a break from the pressure of the tips this week. And instead, we're looking back and celebrating what we've enjoyed of this regular season. So we thought we'd give out some Kay Adams Fantasy Awards. I'm going to call OKs.
Okay.
Right? Thank you. I'm here all week. Let's start with your sleeper of the season. Who was the surprise breakout fantasy player for you?
It was James Robinson, because the Jaguars are such an abysmal team. And I know that they're near and dear to the hearts of all of our UK NFL fans, but the offense couldn't get it done. But somehow this kid out of nowhere was top 5 in scrimmage yards. At one point, he was third in rushing in the entire NFL. He had double-digit touchdowns. So for him to put this team on his back when every defense out there knew what was coming, because he was the lone bright spot, averaging over 4 yards a carry, even that offensive line. I just think that the NFL fans dropped the ball in not making him a Pro Bowler this year. But I think that'll just put a big chip on his shoulder. But he carried fantasy teams to championships single-handedly this year.
Next year, he'll be extra fired up. Who was your rookie of the year in terms of fantasy football?
I think it has to go to Justin Jefferson and no one else. He's somebody that I've talked to you about throughout the weeks here on the show, Hannah, and he's sort of won my heart over. I thought Vikings fans were going to be so upset that they lost Stephon Diggs, who's been crushing it in Buffalo clearly, but both sides of that trade really benefited and won. Fantasy owners who took a chance on Justin Jefferson. I mean, he is just 100-yard game. Rookie wide receivers lately have done that more than in the past, but he is a true standout and he carries himself like he's a veteran. So I cannot wait to see where he gets drafted early next year.
And let's not forget as well, not only did he put up fantasy numbers, he also brought us all the gritty, and we needed that in 2020.
We needed the gritty in 2020, Hannah, not to be overlooked.
Who was your bust player of the year? Who let us all down?
It's hard because there were so many injuries at the top, and there usually are. Christian McCaffrey, Michael Thomas, I mean, hadn't scored a touchdown through like 15. It's just unbelievable what had gone on with him. I'm going to say it's absolutely Zeke Elliott because of Tony Pollard, because you see what this offense was, so many changes, so much adversity, losing Dak Prescott. That should have been Zeke's moment to really emerge and show, I can carry the ball. I can be 60% of this offense. Just give me the rock. And it wasn't the case. Then in week 15, Tony Pollard goes in there, racks up 132 yards. And it's like, oh, maybe it's not the offensive line. Maybe it's Zeke Elliott underperforming. So he really was taken so highly and just a big time bummer for fantasy owners.
The depressing thing is you mentioned Michael Thomas and Zeke Elliott, and across my 2 leagues, I had both of them. And I put a lot of this, my unsuccessful season, I'm going to put a lot of it down there. Okay, this is the big one. Who is your fantasy player of this season? It's a tough one, I know.
It's really, oh man, that's tough. I'm going to say it's going to be I'm going to do it personal. My fantasy quarterback for this season, the one that I rode into my fantasy championship, which was Josh Allen. Josh Allen, an absolute stud. I don't know, the leap that he took from last year to this year was enormous. He did the same thing from his rookie season going into his sophomore year. The numbers on the ground, wheeling and dealing, it's like he was missing a piece. And we saw it in the playoffs last year where he could throw to his number 1 wide receiver and he would bail him out and he'd be there for him. He has that now in Stephon Diggs. I'm so impressed with the fact that he lost John Brown, a huge part of their offense, and Cole Beasley picked up the slack, and Gabe Davis is out there making plays. Their run game isn't necessarily strong. They don't lean on it very much, but instead of that being a weakness, Josh Allen sort of has put it all on his shoulders. He's confident and he's led me. I mean, he's top 5 at fantasy quarterback. So taken late in my draft, and he's the one that got me there.
Absolutely. He's been absolutely great. Away from fantasy specific, we've been really enjoying looking back on some of the big moments and the fun moments that the 2020 regular season has thrown at us. What is your moment of this season?
I would say just the Derrick Henry stiff arms. What he did to Josh Norman was not okay. And it's something that I got to talk to Ryan Tannehill about, that I got to talk to a lot of guys around the league about, that I'd love to talk to Josh Norman about. But it wasn't just him, but Derrick Henry out there just brings you back to what it was like for me growing up watching football, right? Growing up and seeing what the ground game meant, and, you know, the really just strong runs, the angry runs like we talk about on Good Morning Football. So Derrick Henry in those moments, those are the jaw-dropping, popcorn flies up into the air. People are on their couches. And in a year where we couldn't couldn't be at the stadiums, it was something that brings you right back in the game and you feel like you're there on the sideline. So Derrick Henry on his runs is really incredible.
Do love those angry runs, and we have loved having you on Overtime this year. We will see you in 2021, Kay.
Of course we will, maybe in person, Hannah.
Don't tease us.